Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking about the horrors of fabric licensing. And that's why I'm wearing my fabric robe here. And if you, for a special treat, if you want to stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to actually show you what I wear underneath my robe, both in DAX for Humans as well as my Microsoft Fabric robe here. Or I guess you could just skip to the end, don't have to watch my content. Not going to hurt my feelings, so I'm never even going to know that you did it. So feel free. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So Microsoft Fabric licensing. Now, if anyone deals with Microsoft licensing in at all, it's horrifically complex. Everyone knows that, right? Even if you just deal with the simple stuff like Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365 licensing with all of its different, SKUs and bundles and, what's included in what bundle and what isn't, and, add-ons and, business premium versus E1s and E3, there's all that stuff. Well, if that's all you've ever had to deal with is Microsoft licensing, consider yourself lucky. Where it starts to get really complicated is when you get into Dynamics and Power Platform. I think half the SKUs or more, of the Microsoft SKUs that are out there for Azure and Microsoft, or the licensing pieces of Microsoft 365 and that, are dynamic SKUs. Power Platform becomes ridiculously complex in terms of what is and what isn't included in like an E1 or an E3 or an E5 in terms of the Power Platform components and Dataverse. And, you can use this piece of Dataverse with a Canvas app and you just need an E3. But, if you want to do a model-driven app, you have to have a full light. I mean, it gets ridiculously complicated, especially with all of the changes that just came through in August for that. So in contrast, right? And this is just, the standard Microsoft Fabric licensing page. We'll get in more into this. But in contrast, right, Power BI, in particular, Power BI premium licensing was refreshingly simple. And this comes from a Power BI licensing of pictures. And if you go down here to premium, right, you can see basically all you have to do is you just pay for a capacity, P1 in this case, costs you $5 a month. And you just need a pro license per person that's actually going to publish. Then everything else is free, right? All the external users, internal users can, read reports and all that sort of stuff for free. You actually get Power BI report service, reporting services, which you can install, as part of your entitlements, and everybody can use that. Each premium capacity comes with 100 terabytes of storage. So you don't have to ever worry about paying for storage or extra storage or anything like that. There's no data ingress or egress fees, network fees, any of that kind of stuff. All that, it's just $5 a month. It's just simple, right? Well, I mean, it must have been an affront to the Microsoft licensing people that it was so simple, and so along comes Fabric, and now it's complicated again. So let's get into it. The first thing you'll come across, and this is from the same Microsoft licensing document, is this table here, which kind of tells you the Fabric SKUs, which they're also in capacities, anywhere from an F2 to an F2048, and the equivalent of a premium capacity, Power BI premium capacity, P SKU or A SKU or E SKU, right? And so you can see here that P1 is equivalent to an F64, Fabric 64. So essentially, an F64 SKU will give you the same power and compute and horsepower essentially as a Power BI Premium P1 SKU, right? That's the claim. Now, but when you start digging into this, and this is from an announcement in June by that guy, you get into this table and you have a price of, so pay-as-you-go monthly is $8,409.60. So, I mean, I may not be the best at math, but that seems more than $5,000, right? Per month. And about probably 60-70% more. Now this is pay-as-you-go versus, I think, with Power BI Premium, it's a annual commit and that sort of stuff. So maybe this stuff will eventually come down if they go to annual pricing and pay monthly. I don't know, who knows. But this is the way it is right now. But this is not the total cost. Okay, so it's already 67% more. But that isn't the total cost because you also pay for OneLake storage. So on top of this, you have to pay for OneLake storage at 2.3 cents per gigabyte per month. All right. So now you remember I mentioned that I had you get 100 terabytes of storage with PSQs. So if you have 1 terabyte equals 1,000 gigs, so 100 terabytes times 1,000 should give us 100,000 times 0.23. That can't be right. I missed a zero in there. 100,000 times 0.023. There we go. $2,300 per month extra. So now we're up around 10, we're up into, so let's add in there 8409.6. Now we're up to about, we're closing in on 11 grand, which is more than twice the price of a P1 premium SKU, right? Now of course you're saying, well, Greg, nobody's using 100 terabytes and blah, blah. Yeah, but you're entitled to use it, right? And the interesting thing about this is OneLake, the data lake built into Microsoft Fabric, serves as the centralized repository for all organizational data and is billed as pay-as-you-go rate. Well, the interesting thing about that is, so when I'm creating things in Fabric, they're always creating extra stuff for me, right? So if I create a data warehouse, it creates a data set that goes along with it. If I create a lake house, it creates a data set to go along with it. And sometimes when I'm creating like a data flow Gen 2, data flow, it's creating, I'm creating a data warehouse, but it also creates a data lake to go with the Gen 2 data lake, the flow, in order to get the data into the data warehouse. And it also creates a data set. I mean, creates all kinds of stuff, right? So basically, so if you had 100 terabytes worth of data sets, let's say you were take full advantage of your PSQ capacity and put 100 terabytes of data sets into your premium capacity, well, then really you're going to need 200 terabytes or even more, 300 terabytes, 2-3 times the amount of storage, right? Because it's being stored in the data warehouse. It's also then stored in the data set. It's being stored in the data lake, temporarily as stuff goes through it, it's going to store that. So really you'd have to have, 200 terabytes or 300 terabytes of storage that you'd be paying for with OneLake storage, you would see. So that 11,000 number all of a sudden jumps, another, $13,000, $15,000. So the interesting thing is that if a P1 SKU is equivalent to an F64 and all premium SKUs are upgraded automatically to Fabric, then who would ever buy this SKU when you're going to pay 2-3 times more for it than what you get with a P SKU? I got to believe that Microsoft's going to at some point retire those P SKUs or put a cutoff date on those things, because otherwise nobody's going to this kind of create. Nobody's going to want to pay 2 times or 3 times what they're paying now for the same thing. Now, but of course you're saying, well, you have to add Azure Synapse in there because no, premium SKUs are automatically upgraded to have full Fabric capability. So that includes Azure Synapse. So I mean, I guess I have to hand Microsoft credit for like finding a novel way to charge you for 2 or 3 times for every gigabyte of data you put in to Power BI and Fabric. I mean, good for you, Microsoft, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, the other interesting thing about all this is all this information that I've seen, most of the information from MVPs and everything else, really approaches this from a Power BI standpoint. But Azure Synapse is a very different beast. It's not capacity based. It's basically per use, like per SQL query or per query, or that kind of, and it is very flexible that way. Now, and so the question becomes is, okay, we know what a F64 is equivalent to a P1, but what is it equivalent to in Azure Synapse? Like if I'm using a certain amount of Azure Synapse today, what is the equivalent of, are the, because Synapse is if you look at it, one of the main measures is the DW, data warehouse units is what they call them, and it's kind of a wrapped up, compute, memory, all of that sort of stuff, storage and all that. And so they put it in these blocks, right? And it's really hard to decipher exactly what those things are. There's a ton of information on the internet, but it's all very conflicting and crazy. But so I've kind of created this scenario where, okay, but there's no real migration path from what I can tell. You can read a couple articles on this. Like this is a good one by Barry Smart over here, and I'll put these links in the description. But yeah, I mean, so you go through here and he's got a lot of good information in here. I highly recommend reading this article. The other one that I think is a good one is this one by Atlan, where it goes in and talks about some of the same things and some of the issues in terms of how you can actually get this stuff migrated, which doesn't look easy. And I think it might have been written by the same individual because a lot of the diagrams are the same. So migrating Synapse workloads, T-SQL support, and hey, open row set doesn't exist in Fabric, and these things don't exist in Fabric. And so how do you migrate this stuff? Now there's some questions and answers stuff here. There's one by Amir down here where he gives some platitudes. They're like, oh no, it's going to be easy. Oh, unless this, and this, then it's not going to be easy. So, and now something you may be thinking, okay, Greg, but you can spin up and spin down Fabric capacities. Unlike Power BI Premium, I can run an F64, and I can just run it for 8 hours of the day, and then spin it down, and I'm saving a ton of money, this and that. Okay, that's fine, but exactly how do you do that? So if you go in here, here's my Fabric capacities. They're trial capacities. You can see I've got them here, and I can go to Actions. This is the admin portal in Power BI or Fabric now. Even though it still says powerbi.com. I can go here, I can edit my capacity name. I can't do anything else. So the way you're supposed to do this is, resume create. You have to go into the Azure portal. You have to search for Microsoft Fabric Preview. And then you're supposed to be able to manually pause and then restart your capacities here. But the trial capacities don't show up here. It's just production capacities, I guess. But it doesn't seem like there's any way to like put a rule in there saying, hey, I just want to spin this up at 8 a.m. in the morning and spin it down at 5 p.m. It looks like it's all completely manual. So if you forget, one day you forget to come in here and pause your capacities, and it's going to cost you a bunch of money. But the other thing that I noticed when I was going in here, which I thought was interesting, is that the capacity units. So this is an F64. So the trial license is an F6. For some reason, I guess I thought it was an F2 or something. Just because if you've watched any of my videos on this subject, you've seen how long I've waited, waiting for stuff to accomplish. I guess I just assumed that was because it was some crappy little F2 capacity, but no, they're giving me a full F64 license, which is Power BI Premium license, and the stuff's still that slow. That scares me to death in terms of like just how bad is an F2 going to be if an F64 is this bad, in terms of how long I have to wait around for things. So that scares the bejesus out of me. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. The whole Fabric pricing stuff, it seems a lot more complicated, and there's going to be a lot. Oh, that's right. Cross-region data transfer network charges may apply based on source destination, blah, blah. See, all this stuff you never had to worry about with Power BI Premium. You can just put stuff in there and store it in there, and same charge every month. So yeah, no, it's no longer that simple. So I did promise that we come to the end of the video. That's Microsoft Fabric licensing. We'll have to see how it evolves, because I'm sure it will, and I'm sure it will become more complex over time because all of Microsoft licensing seems to do that. But I did promise you to show you what I wear under my robe when I'm filming my videos. So here we go. And it's Pickle Rick, right? Pickle Rick. Everybody's got to love Pickle Rick. So if you ever wanted to know what I wear under my robe when I'm filming my videos, it is Pickle Rick, because I love Pickle Rick. All right, that's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.